We might not see Earth's Jaegers battling the Kaiju again, and there are reasons why this franchise might not continue. However, there's a glimmer of hope with Pacific Rim Black Season 2, which could potentially revive the idea of Pacific Rim 3 in live action. Well, stay tuned till the end of this video because we're gonna have to crack it down for you. Back in 2013, when Pacific Rim was about to hit theaters, Hollywood had high hopes that it could become a big series. It had all the ingredients for success: a famous director, a superstar leading actor, and a great cast. The movie mixed two popular things: giant kaiju monsters and huge sci-fi robots. However, Pacific Rim didn't do as well as expected at the box office. It just made a bit more than it cost to make. The sequel took a long time to happen. Warner Brothers backed away, and Universal Pictures took over. Almost 5 years after the first movie, Pacific Rim Uprising came out, directed by Stephen S. DeKnight. But it didn't do well, maybe because people had to wait for it, or because most of the original cast wasn't there, or maybe it just wasn't that good. It didn't impress fans and critics. It felt like, oh, giant robots again? That's not very original. People who wanted a third movie to complete a trilogy hoped for it, but it seemed the money the first movies made didn't convince Hollywood to make another one. Ever since the Pacific Rim Uprising failed to set the box office ablaze, the people behind it have gone looking for answers. For starters, director Stephen S. DeKnight talked to Collider about how the movie underwent a significant overhaul after some poor test screenings. He said, "When we tested the movie, one of the biggest comments we got was, 'I don't know where I am in the world. I liked the first movie, but I saw it 5 years ago. I don't really remember it.'" This might suggest that the long wait between movies played a part in losing the audience. Returning actor Charlie Day thinks there are other reasons Uprising didn't catch on. Asked by The Hollywood Reporter in 2022 if the change in directors was to blame for the film's failure, he had this to say: "Yes, Guillermo del Toro has such a singular vision and talent. Someone else can do someone else, but no one can do him. He's a true auteur, and when you give an auteur a big franchise, they're going to do something really interesting with it, which I think he did." Pacific Rim Uprising may not deliver a story quite like the first films, but it does fill out the world, expand on the lore, and set up the franchise for a third entry that could completely change the stakes. Notably, Uprising reveals new information on the alien race called the Precursors, the true villains of Pacific Rim who were intent on conquering the planet by sending the Kaiju to wreak havoc on Earth. In the Pacific Rim Uprising, we learned that the Precursors have an ally on Earth who has been serving as an inside man by orchestrating Kaiju invasions. When that person is found out and confronted, we get a clear idea of where a Pacific Rim 3 could go. Ahead of the release of Pacific Rim Uprising, some were already looking ahead to a potential Pacific Rim 3. Director Stephen S. DeKnight was one of them. During a press junket, he told Den of Geek, "Hopefully we'll get a chance to do a third one, if the audience shows up for this one, and hopefully I'll be involved." Following the film's release, though, doubts began to arise about the prospects of a Pacific Rim 3. Eventually, The Knight was cornered by CinemaBlend, who asked point-blank if Pacific Rim 3 was ever going to happen. He said, "That is so far above my pay grade. I've heard nothing. That is up to the executives and the bean counters. Regardless of how the studio may feel, the director wants it to happen." He added, "I think the franchise deserves to be finished, whether or not it made enough money. I honestly have no idea. Long ago, I kind of disconnected myself from any kind of box office worry. Things like that are kind of out of my hands, but I certainly hope so." While Idris Elba and Charlie Hunnam didn't return for Pacific Rim Uprising, at least one of them could make a comeback if a third film happens. Stephen S. DeKnight once told Phantom that he loves Charlie Hunnam, explaining that a scheduling conflict with another project took him away from the first sequel. DeKnight also made it clear that there is room for him to return if the third film ever materializes. He explained, "We've left it open. I have a great idea for how to fold him back into the next installment if he's available and if the schedules work." This statement also suggests that another of the franchise's stars is likely to feature in a third installment too, if DeKnight has anything to say about it. in interviews with star John Boyega, suggest he'd be more than happy to reprise his role as Jake Pentecost, though his more recent comments regarding the Star Wars sequel trilogy could suggest he probably isn't eager to take part in another franchise. While Stephen S. DeKnight has spoken often about his hopes for a third film, some of his comments cast doubt on the idea of him returning. In 2018, he spoke with Cinema Blend and was asked if there would be another movie. His response implied it could happen, but without him at the helm. He said, "I hope, with or without me, because my schedule is starting to get a little complicated, that there's a third installment because I would love to see it." This suggests he may not return even if there is another film. If he doesn't come back, the potential then arises for series creator Guillermo del Toro to return to the director's chair. Unfortunately, he doesn't seem all that keen on coming back himself. In 2021, Del Toro chatted with fans of Pacific Rim on Twitter and said that while he would love to see another film, it'll be as a fan. He said no plans to return. So, where does that leave us? Well, some have suggested Vincenzo Natali could be a possibility to direct Pacific Rim 3. The Cube director has collaborated with Del Toro before, having directed several episodes of Guillermo del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities and The Strain. If Pacific Rim 3 ever comes together, what will it be about? Well, we know where Pacific Rim Uprising sets it up to go, and we know where star John Boyega wants to take it. Tell them next time they won't need to worry about coming for us, because we're gonna come for them. A sequel is primed to take Jaegers and their human pilots through the breach and into the enemy's domain, where they would fight on an entirely new battlefield. But Guillermo del Toro had plans for a very different Pacific Rim sequel at one point, and there's always the possibility that his ideas could be repurposed for a third film. In a 2021 interview with The Wrap, Guillermo del Toro, the visionary behind the Pacific Rim franchise, revealed some intriguing secrets about a discarded storyline that could have expanded the Pacific Rim universe. Del Toro explained that the abandoned story involved a tech-savvy villain who invented Internet 2.0 and acquired patents from mysterious sources, ultimately connecting them to the precursors, the beings controlling the Kaiju. The shocking twist was that the precursors turned out to be humans from thousands of years in the future, attempting to terraform Earth and harvest its resources for their survival. These humans wore exobiosuits that appeared alien but were in fact a part of their own bodies, creating a fascinating paradox. With the arrival of Kaiju messiahs in the series, it's possible that the Pacific Rim universe has reached a peak of robot ridiculousness, and it might be the right time to power down and let the franchise rest in the archives of cinematic history. And that's what concludes today's video. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for the next one. Feel free to share your suggestions for future videos in the comments below.